All right. What's
All
up,
right.
squad?
Gang's all
Hello, hello.
here. No broken countdown. I love it.
Yeah, we just
All
No
good.
skip it this time,
Yeah.
right?
Problem solved. Go around it.
Love it. How's everybody's week going?
It's going great. Lots
The
of good
week
activity.
paradise. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it's definitely defrosted and we're already like just flying, right? I've
That's
not
right.
seen my calendar so booked in quite a while. So it feels good, right? Being busy
It's already
again.
February.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
crazy to
here's
think
our-
about. It's only February, huh?
Oh yeah. Here's our cool new logo. So we've
I love
branded
it.
ourselves here, the Triden Group Security Squad Podcast.
Yeah. Good job, marketing team. This is great.
Very nice.
I love it. I love it. So kind of jumping into it today, we have some various headlines that we pulled together that we want to talk about a little bit. So I think just kicking it off here with the spamcop.net one, that's an interesting one, right? So it was another acquisition that somebody has done and then kind of just fell apart, if you will, right?
I think
Process,
it was done
procedure, things
quite a
didn't
while
come
ago. Yeah. And then domain decided to just stop, didn't get renewed, and bad things happen, right? I think there's a lot of
Right.
spam that kind of went out, and things being flagged as spam that was legitimate, and the opposite of things getting blocked. So yeah, I mean, I know I've seen a lot of issues sometimes where certificates or domain names kind of just get not tracked, and then people forget about it, and it's super super scary when those things can happen, because you can even get legitimately valid domains get picked up by squatters or whatever, and then you're paying to get them back, or used for nefarious purposes and whatnot. So interesting.
Definitely. I know when I used to work at WebSense, which is now a Force Point for those that haven't been in the industry a long time, but they used to always have the question, do we fail open or do you fail closed? So if the database didn't load, what would you do? Right. And
Right.
that's kind of the tale of two evils. It's one of those, which is the best option to go with, if you will.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think there's already just so much, spam in general out there, and it kind of ties into some other topics we'll talk about today. But it just, I think it made for a very interesting Monday for a lot of network admins and sysadmins out there.
I'm sure they're pulling their hair out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, because you always think it's my system to start with. And then as you start digging in,
Right.
somehow it's not always the network. Sometimes it's DNS.
Right.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, DNS is such a core part of the internet, and it's so easy to kind of, abuse sometimes, and what we see. So, yeah, it's a very often kind of forgotten technology, but super critical to enterprise and just security, right?
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that they were able to get their hands on it before anybody else could, before it expired, right? Oh, after it expired. So, yeah. At least they avoided some pain there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Imagine all those, valid redirects then, so now becoming a, security risk, or, going somewhere else to another provider or host could have been quite interesting, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. If someone had hijacked that in the interim, right?
Yep. It reminds me of like when Google.com was taken away that one time.
Isn't that crazy?
So small little things like that. So I know the other one that was on our headlines here was really talking about Robinhood a little bit and some of that impact.
Oh yeah.
Sammy, you're familiar with this one.
Yeah. It's a little bit off the cuff from cybersecurity, but a pretty interesting one this week. As if you don't know, I'm sure you do by now, there was quite a frenzy when it came to Reddit retail traders and a lot of Wall Street hedge funds, Melvin Capital in particular. A lot of people bought into the frenzy kind of like Thursday, Friday, and it looked like Friday there was outages on the part of Robinhood. Then they actually had to limit trade by a certain amount to basically just throttle the amount of buys that were coming in. There's a lot of, and this is becoming a little politicized, but there's a lot of debate, controversy as to whether or not this could be considered market manipulation. So that remains to be seen. But there certainly was a pretty big impact on the retail trading community At the same time, it brought a lot of light to that particular subreddit. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be something that trends moving forward, as hype stocks in general have been kind of on the rise. But this one in particular was definitely notable. And there was something to say about the short position of of GameStop. But yeah, all in all, very, very interesting week in the market.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, some of the reasons that I just kind of threw it up there is just thinking about business continuity planning and like what's the worst case scenario and being able to be prepared for that, right? So part of the problem that they ran into was not having the capital or access to the capital lined up, ready to go to process those trades. So that's just, kind of how you can relate it back to cybersecurity is all of a sudden you can have something trend and you're not prepared and ready for it. And essentially you get a DDoS against it, if you will, lack of a better phrase. But that's kind of the summary from that perspective.
Yeah. That's a good point, right? I mean, I think, as these, I don't want to say smaller companies, but, maybe these, not as well known companies and, kind of cloud providers or, startups, if you will, when they get just like this massive influx, they're not ready for it. And the infrastructure can't scale or can't handle it. And then, like you said, Brian, like, things crash, they get overloaded. And then, there's a lot of fallout too from like, hey, can these guys support the load? But also sometimes, the spikes are so high in these things. It's like, wow, like it's really hard to even predict what some of these would be. But, I think, Sam, to your point, it's like, hey, blocking the trades, it's, not to get all political, but even like both sides of the fence, if you will, are kind of like agreeing like, hey, this should be investigated a bit more and, looked into. And so I think that's kind of like the bigger maybe picture of the whole thing is, it's, I don't want to say censorship or whatnot, but like, hey, like you said, was this manipulation of any kind? And, how deep does it really go? And I think to your point, you're going to see more of these, stocks that kind of just get a lot of run behind them because, people want to jump on and, meme stocks, whatever you want to call it, and things like that. And, a couple of tweets from some famous people and, the things go bonkers. So it's very, very kind of wild to watch and see. And, some of the stories I read were, quite interesting on, ups and downs of the whole thing.
Well, and funny to bring it back, you mentioned, some of these smaller MSPs or even companies that might be affected by that sudden spike. Well, even Reddit themselves, right? That particular subreddit ended up going down at some point on Thursday. Whether that, that remains to be seen if that was some third-party actor intentionally trying to do that or if that was just purely, and this is where my money is, just purely the amount of traffic that all of a sudden started going there. I think they went from like 2 million to 8 million followers on that subreddit. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to, even at Reddit scale, right, you have to be prepared for that kind of traffic and the Discord as well, right? I think they suffered a similar issue. And as a result, they actually banned the chat altogether. And then to tie it back to cybersecurity, one of the biggest parts about this whole thing has been the social engineering, particularly the use of media and bots, right? Because there's been a pretty nice, a pretty interesting usage of bots in this. That there was a lot of it to drive hype away from stocks to stocks. So, it's very interesting to see those public platforms, quote unquote democratized platforms, being kind of exploited to send messages through bots that are spamming and upvoting thousands of posts related to a specific topic. And I think we saw that drive a lot of the hype that we saw today. So what Reddit does moving forward to kind of address those bots, and I think the ownership was mostly on the mods to handle the situation, not necessarily the Reddit executives or Reddit themselves. But I'm curious if they'll step in at some point to kind of address that, because it has serious ramifications, right? I mean, there's potentially millions of people that lost a lot of money because of the influence that some of these bots had. So yeah. Interesting stuff.
Definitely. So I know the next topic that was up here is about the fake Office 365 password expirations. And this really was targeting a lot of C-levels. I think this was ZNet that I saw this article out on. And so I think it's important just to remember that, the longer that we're still in this kind of pandemic situation, that people will continue to try to run up a sense of urgency on something. So people don't want to get locked out. They're tied to their email right now. And they need to be able to have access. So you send out a password reset, and it looks legitimate, they might even be using those SharePoint forms or whatever to make it look like it's hosted on Microsoft's website.
Mm-hmm.
So just have that extra eye out. Like go to your machine and reset the password, or go to the Microsoft, log into your portal.office.com, click on your account, and then reset the password there. Don't click the links to do it.
Type it in manually, right?
My biggest safety tip of the day right there is just go to the website. My bank sends me an email. I don't click on the link, right? I either open the app on my phone, or I go to the URL direct and I go log in and see what their secure message was, versus trying to trust that what came in is legitimate. And some of the password managers out there, like LastPass and stuff like that, will catch that the URL is a fish, but you still trust but verify, if you will.
Yeah, it comes back to also those, like MFA factors, and, especially in a corporate environment, leveraging some type of two-factor or multi-factor. Like phishing is just so relevant and so common, and it's so easy to do. And, like even for us internally, like when we do tests against customers and, we have phishing campaigns, I mean, I would say we're pretty successful most of the time on getting something back, right? So, it's really a lot of training and relevance, and, like you said, tying that sense of urgency. And we're going to see a lot more of this now too, because it's, now a new year. We're going to be getting into kind of quote unquote tax time soon. And, we're seeing tons of that. And, my favorites, like when the IRS calls you and it's like a Siri voice and, there's a warrant for your arrest. And it's like, okay, yeah, that kind of thing. And, like even today, as we're sitting here, I got a text that notified me that I have secure documents waiting, click yes to reply to encrypt them. Like, okay, yeah, great. So we're going to see more and more of these email and kind of spear phishing campaigns against, C-levels, and, tying that sense of urgency. And especially the fact now that you said, like, everyone's so remote, they're not in the office. They can't just like look over and say, hey, Steve, did you send me that email? Yes or no? And they're like, no. And then, okay, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So.
Oh yeah, I remember sitting in a cube farm. It was an open cube farm, and we would all look at each other like, "Did you get that email?" Yeah, it's like from a phishing campaign, like you can't just do that, right? I'm sure we use better protocols than just shipping them all at one time, but that's kind of one of those things that pops up, right? You got to kind of slide them in there and then kind of get that sense of urgency rolling, but not all at once.
Yeah.
There was another one I read this morning about Venmo and how people are trying to go after that one and create a sense of urgency. They can try to log in and then they ask you for your two-factor code and all those type of things. And sometimes people just fall for it. They don't realize.
Yeah, they're crafty. I mean, if you combine the two, right, you can use a phishing SMS in conjunction with a phishing email to try and get MFA codes to get past that as well. It's an extra step and it's definitely more complex, but it's, I've seen some pretty good ones where if you time it correctly, you send the email and then you send the reset as soon as the email gets clicked, and people have gotten people that way. So, I think a big part of it is just hovering links, checking the sender, looking at does it originate from, if it originates from outside of the organization, it immediately gets a high amount of scrutiny. Even if it doesn't, because they can use spoofing, and hopefully you guys as an organization has the protections in place to prevent that, like SPF headers and whatnot, which will then get caught by your email gateways. But the nice thing is, at that point, you really have to do your responsibilities just to check the headers, check the sender, and check the hyperlinks. And always, if you can avoid opening or clicking on it, and it's always better to go to the website directly, right? More often than not, those links redirect you to some functionality on the website anyways. You can always go there manually. So yeah, and to your point about CEO phishing, it's definitely on the rise. And now I find that even employees are starting to get targeted because with payroll diversion scams, now people are starting to masquerade as regular employees asking HR to update payroll. And then as a result, when payroll comes around, you have handfuls of employees who get their funds routed somewhere else, and it could be a real mess. So
there's a message. What was it called again? Header Analyzer. That's the name of it. That's a plugin that you can put in Outlook now. Especially on the Mac, it's hard to figure out how to read those headers.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a new little add-on that you can put on to go read the headers now. So the message header analyzer that you can put in, so that helps. But make sure your
Like
IT department says it's okay first.
Like you said, trust but verify. Call the person. Hover over links. I think those are good.
Oh, and don't forward the
takeaways.
email. Yeah.
Oh
well.
yeah, there you go.
Don't
Hey,
forward it.
forward it. Is this valid? And then everyone clicks it, and you're like, okay, well.
Yep.
Thanks.
Exactly. Kind of spreading the attack that way. It's definitely better just take a screenshot, let your support know, and report it, but don't send it for sure.
Oh yeah, we can go look through the Exchange logs and find the headers and stuff. So this was an interesting one. Citrix settles for 2.3 million. So it was an employee breach that looks like it had happened. So going back to the compliance kind of side and the importance of all of that, and it can cost you real money. At the end of the day, 2.3 million is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, it's a decent amount, right? It looks like it was back from June 2020, if I recall correctly, and it was about 25 or so thousand members. So I think that's class action at that point. So yeah, I mean PII and other types of data looks like were stolen. Health insurance, driver's license, account information, even credit card information. Is what it sounds like. So things like that, right? So it's things you want to watch out for, and it's these things are happening every day.
Definitely. And then the cost to probably prevent that was a lot cheaper, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? I mean, depending, how or what they kind of got into and, came through on some things, but, it's always that kind of cost of doing nothing versus, paying out or, ransomware or cost of downtime. These are important things to keep in mind from the security side. It's, if your business was stopped for a day, okay, how much revenue would you lose? And then, the potential fix is X, is it worth it to buy Y? And, usually it most likely is in a lot of cases, right?
Exactly. I'm sure somebody's cybersecurity insurance helped pay for some of that too, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Nice. So the next one here was that Cyberpunk mod that came out or whatnot. So that's an interesting one to talk about.
Yeah, they recently discovered that vulnerability in external DLL files that the game uses. So you can actually end up executing codes in the PC. Code on the PC rather. And yeah, so I think they added mod support back in January, late January, I think it was the 25th or 27th. So and it's been about 6 days and people have already found RCEs. So just kind of goes to show how fast the industry moves there. But basically, if you do have the game and you do have it on PC, I would just wait to mod. Unless you actually know how to read the code, dive into it, understand what's happening, I wouldn't download any external files or try and install any mods. But good on the modders good on the hackers for figuring it out in 6 days. That's good time.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast it's moving nowadays with all that. Don't install that stuff on your corporate PC though. Make sure it's on your own personal machine. Whenever you install games and things like that, you need to have your IT department's approval. Just some of those basic things, I know.
Well, it's just kind of funny, right? I mean, I'm not really a big gamer, but the concept is hey, back in the day, I want some music or some other software here and there. You go to some website, you download what you think is, a safe exe or something, but it's okay, well, now you're just downloading random stuff, good luck what it is. And it just sounds like, you take a popular platform, you take a game that's all about modding and kind of customization and things like that. And, you have a good target list and a good recipe for, going after things. And, Sam, to your point, installing whether it's crypto miner or ransomware, things like that behind the scenes. Some of these maybe high-end gaming rigs, right? So it's just, the whole, take something that's popular, turn it into a weapon and just let it, infect everything. So as a, tried and true behavior, I think. Yeah,
I know. And nowadays it's hard enough to trust signed publishers, let alone unsigned publishers. So
just have SolarWinds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got this far in.
I had to. It was a good setup. I couldn't let it go.
I kind of laid that one up.
Happy hours on Derek now.
Yeah, that's true. Virtual happy hour. There you go.
Yeah, we had a bet.
That's funny. Yeah, I couldn't resist, Brian. Sorry.
Nice. Sammy, you want to talk about this last one?
Yeah. EmoTech. So, law enforcement and I don't even know how you would pronounce that. I'm just guessing it's EmoTech. There might be some other pronunciation.
You
But
see how I just lobbed that over to you?
yeah. You didn't even mention it. That's me pulling the hard work. That's okay. Well, yeah. So for those who don't know, law enforcement and a lot of judicial authorities worldwide, mind you, disrupted one of the more significant botnets in the past decade, EmoTech. Investigators basically are taking control of the infrastructure and are now, using a coordinated effort to try and basically bring it down and I think find all of the participants who were involved in it. But that is one of the more long-lasting cybercrime services out there. I think it was in 2014. It was originally a banking Trojan that evolved to go as more of a go-to cybersecurity solution or cyber criminal solution. So yeah, quite interesting stuff. And again, I said this was a collaborative effort between authorities from Netherlands, Germany, United States, UK, France, Lithuania, Canada, Ukraine, and actually the list goes on. So you can see that this is a highly coordinated effort. But yeah, pretty big splash in the infosec world.
Seems to be the new theme, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of gang type works, people ganging up together to make these things happen, if you will. Very coordinated.
Yeah, I think it's good, right? I mean, you kind of have to have, let's just say, the federal, the government side, private industry, private sector, kind of working together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good skill and coordination there, and personally, I think we're going to see more of these, right? As things kind of go on. Some of these things, as you said, mentioned Sammy, are they go on for 8+, 10+ years. Very hard to kind of get into and kind of disrupt, but it's kind of where I think things are going in the industry, and data is power and things like that, and the next kind of wars are going to be much more information type wars, and we're going to see more of these disruptions of good versus bad, if you will, on these large botnets or operations and persistent groups, and just kind of taking them down, so to speak. And there's even other things where some of the dark websites and trading grounds were kind of recently shut down as well.
Yep.
So we're kind of seeing that the uptick now, and I think with everything going on, and 21 is going to be a pretty big year for more of these types of, I think, announcements we're going to see.
Definitely. And I know that the coordination, there's two philosophies for bringing law enforcement in, right? So one, they could seize your equipment and your business is kind of down, and your job is to keep your business up and operating and get recovery back up and working. But they also have programs where you can send log files over and different things, so you could image your machine and then have some analysis and things like that done on it. Mm-hmm. So for example, in San Diego, I know the local FBI chapter, in coordination with InfraGard, has some things that they can work together on. And then CISA is starting to really grow its bench as well. And this year we'll see how the funding goes with them. But if they get that large, was it 1.9 billion in funding? It's a significant amount. It's additional funding. We'll see more and more resources available through CISA.
Yeah. I think you said we're going to see budgets kind of open up just across the board from security, and with everything going down, it's not going to go anywhere. And to your point, more of these joint efforts, and how does the private community help the government side, and kind of vice versa, and like you said, make it easier to work and kind of coordinate these joint tactical efforts, basically, right? It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty interesting just to see across borders too. It just makes you wonder, are these issues going to stop becoming less of a localized, maybe issue, and more of an international issue, and you start seeing these international efforts to take down some of these nation states. Because when you ultimately, when it comes down to security, I think pooling resources is the most optimal thing if you want to be effective in pulling together the right minds, and that's that requires going across borders for that. So it's interesting to see that collaborative effort against something that has really been global for a long time. I think 2014 we said, right? So
yeah,
cool.
Quite a bit of a infection over the years on that one. So it's glad it's kind of winding down, so to speak, on that one. All right.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for another awesome Triden Group Security Squad podcast.
Woo!
Look forward to seeing
Thanks,
you guys
everybody.
in 2 weeks. We have a special guest lined up, so hopefully you guys will join us next time.
That's right.
All right. Take
All
care,
right.
everybody.
Take care. See you guys.